soul is mirrored by others walking this path with you. Come and be seen, guided, and activated. These spiritual circles are sacred containers, personal energy readings, channeled guidance for your life, and a conscious community where insights flow and souls remember who they are. Visit therealhealinginstitute.com to sign up.
Think about it. Every hiring decision is a choice that can make or break a team, a culture, and even an entire company. So how do we make the right choice? Hi, I'm Dr. Mickey, and welcome to Inside the Mind of Hiring. Here we'll uncover the psychology and strategy behind effective hiring. Because the right fit isn't just about skill or experience. It's about understanding people, their motivations, their strengths, and the shadows of their shortcomings. Together, we'll tackle the tough questions. How do we look beyond bias? How do we find the qualities that make people not just qualified hires, but the right hires? This is about identifying leaders who drive success, lift morale, and actualize a company's vision. Inside the Mind of Hiring starts now. Of Delta Consultants, LLC. And this is my great partner and host, Dr. Pat Baselli. And
nice.
She's going to join me today to add value to this presentation, this discussion. And our show is Inside the Mind of Hiring. And our episode today is After the Hire, the Real Challenge. The real challenge.
Now, I love this.
Right. So let me give you a little frame for this. Let's say the hiring team did their job. They did their due diligence. They sourced 3 key candidates at least. They conducted adept interviews of these candidates. They also reviewed their backgrounds, their experience, which they incorporated into great interviews. They did background checks, perhaps which included a drug screening, and all that. And they had robust discussions among each other, the hiring team, of each candidate individually and comparatively with the other candidates. And then they had a robust decision-making discussion, and they came to a consensus on a candidate. They made the candidate an offer, and the candidate accepted. Yay! But that's only a little bit of the battle. So the key question is, what can the hiring team do to ensure that the candidate is really a success in doing their job and adjusting to and meeting the cultural standards of the company? So that's actually the real battle. It really is. So first, I don't know, Dr. Pat, you have a reaction to that?
Yeah, because I thought about this. And by the way, I put a job post out for a sales position. And what we're about to talk about today, I built into the approach I'm going to take with these salespeople. I'm going to do something with this new sales team that we haven't done before. I'm going to interview them differently. It's going to be a 3-interview process. The third part of the process is going to be more of a role play. And it's because of this conversation today, because you have to have, it's like growing up in the Bronx. My uncle always told me when he gave me those boxing gloves, you have to have the 1-2 punch. Now, I'm not saying to punch your candidate out. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's not enough to hire somebody and then ignore them. Now, does that sound a little harsh?
No,
but that's what's happening, Dr. Mickey.
I can't believe that's happening, because that's not.
I know
that's not what I call protecting your investment.
That's why you're here. That's why you're the consulting group. That's why you consult with these top corporations to hire people and follow it through. I don't think we do it on purpose, Dr. Mickey. And I think that's what we're talking about today.
Yeah.
What can organizations and hiring teams do differently?
Well, let's say I'd like to move out of the business world for a second here and talk
Me
about
too.
my yeah. And
Like I'd like to play ping pong for the rest of my
yeah,
life, but yeah, go
yeah,
ahead.
but I'd like to talk about my experience as a young freshman at the school that I chose, which was a small college on the eastern shore of Maryland. Now, this school went through their due diligence as well in bringing me in as a student and selecting me. Of course, they checked my high school transcript. They checked my SAT scores. Um, they interviewed me. They reviewed my application. They had a student representative take me around campus on a visit, and I'm sure that they observed me and gave the admissions principals some input on me. And it was one of the school that it was my first choice, this college. It was one of five colleges or universities but I wanted a small school. But it was one of the five schools that I interviewed for and applied for. And I was very happy when they selected me, and became a student there. And first couple of weeks, I discovered that I didn't pick my roommate. They assigned the guy to me, and it was really a nice guy, and I really respected him. Really different from me, but definitely a different flavor than Mickey Feinberg. But guy really kind of liked and respected, and I was enjoying my classes. I was enjoying the fraternity rushes and the open houses that the fraternities were conducting, and enjoyed meeting people and dining with them at the dining hall, and just talking to people around campus, and going to the local pubs and all that. And I was enjoying my first 2 or 3 weeks there. It was like really nice. And during the third, maybe fourth week of my experience at the school, the supervisor, one of the supervisors at the freshman dorm, he was a junior at the school, a third year student, and he asked me to join him in his room. He wanted to talk to me about something, and he was like sort of an earnest fellow, kind of studenty, if I must say. Not the most ebullient kind of guy, and not really the most popular guy on campus, because I really didn't know much about him other than knowing his role and seeing him around, for brief time periods, and just being there. So the thing, I'm from Philadelphia, and I really I'm proud of my city, and I like talking about it and my experiences there. And what I had in common with this dorm supervisor is he was from Philadelphia too. And, that felt okay. So he invited me to sit down in his dorm room, and he said, Mickey, I want to tell you that you're really developing the reputation of an asshole. And then, what?
Gotta love our
What?
Philadelphia people.
And that kind of, yeah, like, really? So I was a little bit taken back by that. And then he started to explain why. He says, people are seeing you as really dominating conversations, always talking about yourself and your experiencing, being selfish in conversation, and not expressing much interest in others, and not asking questions. You really don't want to understand people. You're really showing off who you are, and not really getting to know the people that you're talking to. And I said, I started to think, kind of knew this about myself, that I was like over anxious about making a positive impression on people.
Yeah.
So I was, that's how I was expressing that, my fear, perhaps. And, it got me thinking about stuff like that. So, but the thing is, I really appreciated what he did. I must have been a little more mature than usual for an average freshman
I'd say.
student. but I thanked him and shook his hand. And I said, I really appreciate what you said. I'm going to try to work on this.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I hope you do, because it's really going to make a difference. So I went to my roommate first and I said, Jim, are you seeing me this way? And he said, Mickey, in all honesty, I'm really not. So I went to two other people that I liked and respected at the dorm, and they said, Mickey, we're not getting a boatload of this from you, but we are getting hints of it, to be honest with you.
How
they both
diplomatic is that?
Yeah, they basically said it in separate conversations. So that convinced me that this whole thing was valid. So I really decided my mission was to get stupid. That was my mission. Mickey, get stupid. And I did that. And in the process of getting stupid, I started to learn about others and express interest in them, no matter who I met and where I met them. And I just got inquisitive with people. And but I also communicated back that I understood what they were saying. And, like I had a reaction to what they were saying. So that really apparently turned things around for me. And I had a really good 4-year experience at this college, but I'll never forget the feedback that this guy gave me.
Yeah, because it wasn't going to turn out that way unless you did change.
I don't believe,
right?
I really don't believe it would have.
No,
it was really important.
Mm-hmm.
So this story is designed to underscore that straight, reasonably supported but unvarnished feedback from candidate team members who are credible and respected is like the breakfast of champions. And it's often really necessary to protect a business's investment in new candidates or new hires, and ensure that they're successful. So, after hiring key people, I recommend that the hiring team, if not members of the hiring team, but they establish this, what I call a success team, or what we call a small village, so to speak, that is really there to tell new hires what they need to hear, not what they necessarily want to hear, to guarantee or ensure their success at the company. So what I'm thinking is success teams should include, they certainly can include the person's boss, and probably should include the person's boss, because the person's boss is really responsible for giving straight feedback. Okay. So they should include the person's boss, but they should also include a key respected peer of the person in the organization, somebody from another department at an approximate or exact peer level of that person, and even a direct report. If the person is managing people, a direct report who is successful and well respected at the company could be part of the success team, very much so. Actually, what I learned over the years is people give their bosses feedback more readily, and their bosses give their people feedback more readily than peer-to-peer feedback. Peers have the most difficult time giving each other feedback, but peers should definitely be in the group, and they should. The important thing is they should be respected. They should be respected. I'm saying this a lot, but it's important because they should have credibility. And the psychologist who did the assessment, if a psychologist does the assessment, should be available to give that candidate, to give that new hire some insights into themselves after 60 days, perhaps, and then after 90 days to reinforce, that discussion and to check on progress. But, the psychologist should know what's going on with that new hire, for sure. Okay. And it's all designed to help and support that person.
But don't you think, Dr. Mickey, and let's get back to the conversation of hiring, because this is what you do, right? You're the person that they hire to be that person that takes candidates, evaluates them, gets them ready, picks the candidates to go and sit with the hiring team. Right. Don't you think hiring teams could do more by thinking about the future of the person they select, because 9 times out of 10, even in the hiring conversations, we're not sitting down and saying, I'm going to be responsible for your success. My name is Pat Basile. I am the dot, dot, dot. I am your mentor, and I'm going to be your mentor for the next 12 months. You see, what? Now, why am I bringing that up? I work for a company who had the top scientists in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Arno Penzias and the Big Bang.
Right.
These people, right? Everybody from Jim West to people, patents, names you know. But there was one executive VP who incorporated this policy in his entire organization. And he had the largest one, responsible for every system that's now even on your cell phone.
Mm-hmm.
But he incorporated that. And there were bonuses and there were consequences if you, as the mentor, did not do what you were supposed to. Mm-hmm. What holds us back from doing something like that? I'm not saying you have to do that, but something like that that goes beyond the immediate supervisor. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
In other words, there's basically a program. But one of the things that I like that you said is in the context of the interview of the candidate. You know, that could be, if it's a feedback culture, which is important, it's important to bring that up with the candidate. Is we're going to support your success here, and that can be certainly a positive feature, as well as an embedded practice in the culture. You know, a feedback culture, I think, is very important. And I think 360s are really good to have. But I think there's in the sense of the way I look at things, and I have used 360 instruments. You know what I mean? Feedback assessments.
Yeah.
To me, there's nothing better than informal, in context feedback that a new hire can really engage in and respond to, and so that they can get perspective on it and really understand it. And I think these people that are on the success team, or this core village that we're talking about, should be really equipped. They should be able or capable of giving solid feedback, specific, straight feedback. And if it's counterproductive, whether it's counterproductive or not, but I have some examples. If it's they're talking about counterproductive stuff, they should be equipped and licensed to say what they think the impact is of that.
Well, give us some examples of this, because I think what you're talking about, I hope it doesn't become, it's not going to be, if the companies work with you, this is not going to become a lost art. But in the frenzy to hire, right? What are some examples of what we're talking about from where you sit? Because you're at the end where you have to take some responsibility too, right?
Oh, yeah. So, but if the person is acting counterproductively, the group that's giving them feedback should be able to say to him from their own perspectives, the direct report and the boss, it's like things like, you're causing a major morale problem here. It's unfortunate, but your tenure is really being threatened. If you continue, on this course that you're on, you could be caught. You're losing your influence. You're not influencing anybody really. People aren't paying attention to you in a real sense. They're not, and you're losing your team. I think sometimes is important to say. If that's true. So it's important that people not only get the feedback, but they get the implications of it. They really get the implications of it. And where the psychologist can be helpful is to identify underlying traits or attitudes that could be causing the counterproductive behavior. Underlying characters like what was going on with me. You're too anxious to make a positive impression. So you're distancing yourself from mistakes, or you're talking too much and not letting people into the discussions, particularly the decisions that impact them. You have a tendency to be too task focused, and you're not focusing enough on your impact on people. You're too directive and controlling. You have this in your nature. So, it's great that you can make decisions and tell people what you want to do, but you're not letting them into the decisions that impact them. They have no control or impact on that. And you're over directing them. You're hovering over them, and they're not developing a sense of confidence and independence in what they're doing. So I can get into that sphere a little bit. But certainly it's important for the success team to be positive and encouraging as well. It's like, we really want to learn from you. You have tremendous expertise that can help this company. We really feel that you can succeed here. So they certainly can be encouraging. And by all means, if the new hire is being successful, they need to know that. They need to know it in a straight and specific way, why they're being perceived as successful. It's like people really seem to trust you. They say positive things about you. They feel like you let them in on decisions that impact them. They also feel like you can make a decision.
Yeah.
And, pull the trigger when it's important to pull the trigger. And your peers feel like they really feel like they're your partner. Yeah. And so they're really feeling good about the relationship. So they need to hear in no uncertain terms what they're doing, because you want to sustain the positive stuff and for even further strengthen it and sustain it over time. So this feedback stuff should not go away, but people should definitely hear the positive stuff as well as the counterproductive stuff. And but if it's counterproductive, that's what should be emphasized, because you don't want people to derail.
No. And what you're saying is, we're not talking about your traditional feedback systems where you sit down once a year and you have a chit chat. We're talking about on the job, what can I do to ensure your success? Dr. Mickey, we only have a few minutes left. I want people to know how they get a hold of you. And the only other comment I'm going to make is, you and I are talking in generalities. Every culture is different. So you have to develop the blueprint that matches your culture. For example, Microsoft, culture of their own, clearly not Amazon, but you have to design something. So what's your personal message? What do you want to leave us with? And again, tell us, please, how to find out more about you.
Well, I want to make sure, if there's a problem, that the success team does do an intervention, and there's agreement that a problem exists, and that there's a plan to turn things around, and there's agreement that the plan is viable and all that. Because if not, you got to make your move. You got to cut your losses and your denial time, because it's not worth it. And I think it's really important. And I think informality is really important as an element of this, because I think it gets heard better.
Yeah.
But the way to reach me, find out about me, is deltaconsultants.com, www.deltaconsultants.com. You can find me on LinkedIn under Dr. Mickey Feinberg, Fineberg. And you can certainly email me at Mickey, Mickey, at deltaconsultants.com. Thanks, Pat.
Thank you, Dr. Mickey. And for those of you out there, I want to leave you with this. What is the point of what we're talking about? Think about this. A phenomenal company by which we would not have cell phones creates something called a picture phone in 75. And because they did not do what Dr. Mickey just said, one person made a decision without feedback. Clearly, the company that would have developed a picture phone in 1975, I can't even begin to tell you the possibilities. That's a discovery that never came to fruition because it didn't do what Dr. Mickey said today. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Doctor. You have been listening to Inside the Mind of Hiring with me, Dr. Mickey Feinberg. Tune in the first and third Tuesday at 11 on Transformation Talk Radio to discover the psychology of making successful hiring decisions. In each episode, hiring managers and HR pros will learn how to leverage assessments and other key screening sources and avoid common pitfalls. Job seekers will gain insight into successfully presenting themselves. For more information on assessing people for mission-critical jobs and on career assessment and coaching, visit deltaconsultants.com and my LinkedIn profile. If you'd like to write me personally, it's Mickey, M-I-C-K-E-Y, at deltaconsultants.com.